Let's start at the beginning with a topic that underlies pretty much any detailed discussion of a game-centered approach. What is a game? While there are many definitions, one that is particularly useful for our purpose is a game is a form of play with an aim and rules. The three major terms in this definition, rules, play, and aims, are each important to understanding games. So let's look at them individually. Aim. The broad nature of any game is defined by its aim. For example, the basic aim of tennis is to score points by hitting the ball over the net. The broad aim of soccer is to invade the territory of the opposition and score by kicking the ball into the goal. The key point is that the aim shapes the context and nature of the game. The aim does not have to produce winners and losers. Cooperative games allow for every player to win if the goals are reached. Rules. Every game has rules of play. The rules are the borders and the heart of the game. They define how the game should be played. And whoever plays a game voluntarily agrees to follow and stay within inside the rules. Play. Games are created by the player's interaction. Games are a dynamic flow of activity in which the outcome is unknown and dependent upon the strategy and skill of the players. At the same time, the concept of play helps remind us that games are entertainment and fun. It's amazing how many people forget that. Each of these ideas is important to thinking about how we can use games in an educational way. So let's drill down on these concepts a little bit more. Grouping games by their common aims. Many games are similar in nature. For example, badminton and tennis both involve hitting a ball over the net with a racket. In many ways, they seem to be conceptually very different from rugby or soccer. Over the years, games have been classified in a number of different ways, but one of the most useful and popular ways has been the TGFU categories. Teaching Games for Understanding offers a logical way to classify games by grouping them according to the set of technical problems that they have in common. In this way, TGFU divides games into target, striking, net, and wall, or invasion games. Of course, these are not the only categories, and we can add more to this, such as cooperative and challenge games. The key point here is to understand that grouping games together enables teachers to focus on the common game features and technical problems that can transfer to a number of different games within a broad category. Rules. Games are defined by their rules. These rules normally fall into two basic categories. Primary rules provide games with their basic shape. They define things like the boundaries of the playing area, what equipment is used, how scoring is achieved, and how players are allowed to interact with each other. Secondary rules provide the nuance to the game and ensure the play is within the spirit of the game. This means that they're often used to fine-tune the game to both limit what players can do and open up possibilities for what they can do. Secondary rules are often introduced to improve the fairness, equity, challenge, and strategic options for players. The key point here is to know that rules can be changed and modified to create new games or shape how one aspect of the game is played. Teachers should use and introduce game rules as needed. Play. Games can look chaotic to the outsider, but to those involved they are logical but unpredictable. It is the ability for a game to be different every time it is played that is so entertaining for its participants. We can think of gameplay as a dynamic flow of activity in which the player is confronted with a range of technical problems. That's quite complex, so let's look at this idea in more detail. Firstly, games are about solving technical problems. For example, a basketball player needs to be able to advance the ball up the court, pass the ball to teammates, and score points, amongst many other things. In terms of game-centered learning, Dr. Tim Hopper summarizes the process of solving these problems as a process of 4 R's. That is, the player has to be able to read, respond, react, and recover. Read involves perceiving the problem from the cues in the game situation. Responding means strategizing an effective solution from the options on offer. Reacting involves performing the solution and adapting the action as necessary. And then recovering involves anticipating and preparing for the next problem to emerge. Secondly, players in games are constantly solving lots of technical problems. In fact, we can think of the play of the game as a flow of activity, full of lots of little technical problems that lead to new and different technical problems. For example, our basketball player needs to move the ball up the court, so dribbles. Then they see someone in a better position and they pass them the ball. They then need to stop the opposition, so they move quickly back on defense. This flow of activity is always changing, always dynamic, and always challenging the player to find an effective solution. In terms of game-centered learning, there is a need to recognize that this flow of problems can be overwhelming for students. This is why it is important for teachers to match the game with a student's ability. Teachers can do this in the following ways. Firstly, simplify the game. Retain the primary rules, use small-sided games, and reduce the overall complexity of the game. Secondly, shape the play by manipulating the key variables. For example, change the size of the field, the ratio of attackers to defenders, or award bonus points for particular actions. Thirdly, focus the learner's attention with guide discovery. Ask inquiry-focused questions and set appropriate problem-solving tasks with the specific goal of helping students to read, respond, react, and recover. Lastly, enhance practice by broadening or refining the technical complexity. For example, modify the rules to quicken the pace or change the playing parameters to create different pressure on players. Remember, the intent of a game-centered approach is not for students to become proficient in a particular sports skill, but rather to gain a better understanding of the self and others, game structure, game play, and the situated physical and social skills involved. In a game-centered approach, teachers can select, design, create, and adapt games to suit their learning intentions. In the next video, we explore the pedagogy of a game-centered approach in a little bit more detail.